We're back on campus with head football coach Steve Smith here at Westbrook. And coach, last week you guys played Glencoe in a very important game, and you guys got a big victory, 44-7. Being able to do that, seeing your guys perform in all three phases did their part, and to get a victory like that. Take us back to last week and how it all transpired.
It was a great opening win for us. As we talked about last week, heading into the game, region game. Being in this 9-team region, you got a counting game right off the bat. So really all we had under our belt was a jamboree with Hoax Bluff. But, I was very pleased with our guys. Our opening drive of the game, we took it down, scored. Didn't have a whole lot of success running the ball. That was something that's a point of emphasis this week, see if we can't go back to run the football better. Had some success in the pass game, and defensively we forced 4 turnovers. One of them we recovered a fumble inside their 5 and was able to punch that one in. Interception, we returned down back to the 25 or so, punched that one in. Special teams wise, we blocked a punt, took over on the 1-yard line, punched that in. So, we talk to our kids all the time about complementary football, one thing feeding off the other, offense feeding off the defense, vice versa. Special teams, the important part that they play in the game. I think Reed had 5 or 6 touchbacks on kickoffs. We punted 3 times. All of them were down inside the 20. And as I went back and watched the film, every time Glencoe took over the ball, with the exception of 2, I think there were 12 possessions in the game, but every possession they had except for 2 started 20-yard line or worse. So you're making the other team have to go 80-plus yards. And of our 12 possessions, I want to say 9 of our 12 possessions started at the 50-yard line or plus territory in their territory. And that was just the good kickoff, defense holding them, punt, fair catch at the 50, short field for the offense to have to go. We talk about that all the time with our team, how one thing feeds off the other. And I thought it was, for a first game, it was a good, well-rounded effort in all 3 phases.
Absolutely. And, Coach, the other portion, I talked to Bailey Blanchard earlier today, and he said you and him spoke after the game, and he was like, a difference in 6-7 plays.
Right.
But your guys was able to go out and perform on the 6 or 7 plays.
Right.
Complementary football. When you look at the overall package of a game like that, you got to be pleased. But at the same time, it's one of those things where you got to kind of dial it back in, because you're playing another dangerous opponent in Sachs this week, who you've had some wars with over the years.
Right.
But how do you do that as a coach? How do you get the guys to say, hey, yeah, we did perform good in this one, but that's last week, and we got another big test this week?
I think it's the same thing from a coach's perspective. You keep the same mindset every week. It's the same challenge. You can't get too high if you play really good one week. Can't get too low if you don't play so well one week. You got to be able to make sure that you can get your kids back, understanding it's on level ground. We're 0-0 when we walk on the field. What happened last week to the good for us. Sachs had a rough game last week. Really, those 2 games have nothing to do with Friday night when we go to their place and play. We were at home last week. They were on the road. Sachs traditionally always plays better at home than they do on the road. I mean, most schools are that way. Most people are going to play better in their home environment, right? But just understanding that last week don't have anything to do with this week. We still got to go out this week and prepare for a new opponent. Sachs brings some dynamics to the table that other people in our region might not. They're young. I think there's 23 players on their roster this year, and 3 of those guys are 8th graders. And when we did our scouting report, I think they start 4 9th graders and an 8th grader. A couple of them both ways. But they are so athletic. When you look out there, and they got wideouts on either side that are about 6'1", 6'2", that can run. They got running backs that the game that they won week 1, they beat Horseshoe Bend week 1, 48-42, and several times Horseshoe Bend had the play defensed, and the running back just reversed field and outran everybody, So they've got home run threats all over the field, and so you never really, if you play a team like Sachs, you never feel comfortable on a play until you see them on the ground. And that's that's a big point of emphasis that we're making this week. We're not just trying to get our hands on them. We're not just trying to hit them hard. We're trying to get them on the ground, because the play, they've got guys that are capable of going 80 yards at any point in time if you don't get them on the ground. So that's the new challenge this week, is to be able to tackle better. We played really good on the defensive side, I thought, up front. Like I said, we forced 4 turnovers last week. But again, everything last week is really out the window because the new challenge this week with a different type of team.
Coach, when you look at turn that film on and we talk about all three phases, your special teams right now is clicking at a really good level. And you know, the field position itself is one thing, but also executing extra points and anything that they've been asked to do, pretty much they've done. Talk about that and how huge that comes into a game like this.
Yeah, you know, I think a lot of times people talk about working on everybody works on special teams, but to be good at special teams, you have to have talented people. And we got some good guys snapping the football, holders, and then Reed Barber, I've mentioned, I've sang his praises before. I think he's one of the top kickers in the state, regardless of classification. He's a big weapon for us, you know, just because our defense pretty much knows every time they take the field after a kickoff that they're going to start at the 20. And high school football, that's a big deal. You know, 80 yards is a lot harder to go than 50. And we got capable people, I think, on our coverage teams and stuff. In fact, he had one kickoff that didn't make the end zone the other night, and they ran it back out to like the 38-yard line. And I kind of gave me an opportunity to get on the coverage team a little bit because we got really good guys on our coverage team. I think they've just gotten so used to him kicking in the end zone that they just been running a sprint from the 40 to the goal line every time Turner comes to the sideline. And that one particular time when he kicked it down to about the 4 or 5 yard line, he kind of mishit the ball a little bit, and we didn't break down and make the tackle, you know. So it was a great teaching point for us when we put the film on that, hey, don't take it for granted. You may be playing somewhere one night where the wind's blowing 20 miles an hour in your face. So we got to do a better job. But very pleased. Coach Wayne Lee handles our special teams, does a great job each week coming up with a special teams game plan, presents it to the kids. And we got kids that take special teams seriously, and that's something that's special to me because a lot of times people look at special teams as being a demotion, but the other night, I think we had 23 special teams plays in our game.
Yeah, so that's right.
And, you know, you got 6 touchbacks. You might have made field goals. You had a blocked punt. You had 3 punts down inside the 20 from your end when you kicked it. You know, that's 10, 11 of those special teams. That's half the special teams plays right there that had favorable outcomes from our perspective. And none of it really involved making a tackle as much as it just involved, you know, doing what you're supposed to do. So something we want to continue to work at and continue to realize that can be a big-time advantage for us if we will stay focused on it.
Yeah, no, that is huge, especially, and it can rear its ugly head in a bad way or a positive way. And in your case,
correct,
you're trending in the positive way, so that's huge. A couple more questions, Coach, and I'll get you out of here because I know you're a busy man today. Rolling on over into the season, assessing the overall team and how it is, do you think you guys are on par about where you need to be at this point, or there's some things you're concerned about or some things you've been really pleased about so far?
Now, you're asking a coach that question. You know, what's the standard answer you expect to get? No, we're not near good enough for you.
I'm talking about for the time frame you've had to guys.
You know, as a coach, I think you never are really completely satisfied. I do think it was a great effort for us. I think our home opener had a great crowd. Both sides. Glencoe brought a great crowd. It was a packed house. Environment was outstanding. You know, beautiful weather to play in. Friday night was in the 70s. Everything just sort of lined up perfectly for that, and getting the win and the result obviously was the culminating part of the night that made it so good. But from a coach's perspective, you know, we had plenty to come in here and watch film on Monday, and some of the mistakes that we made, you know, were not necessarily mistakes. They weren't made because of a lack of experience. It wasn't something you said, well, you don't expect to make those mistakes week 8. Some of our mistakes were just mental. Some of them were things that physically I know we can do. We just didn't execute. We just didn't get it done. And a lot of that, like I said, I want to give a hats off to Glencoe. Like I said, the score of 44-7, it looks a lot more lopsided than how that game actually played out. They had a really good rushing defense. They shut our rushing game down. They did a lot of good things the other night, but I mentioned a few of those big plays, and you said Coach Blanchard, when you talked to him, those 6 or 7 plays, you know, they always are going to determine the outcome of the game. They went our way. And, you know, our guys made those plays, and so I'm proud for our guys doing that. But, you know, that game was not necessarily as much of a blowout as the score might indicate, and I really like what they're doing at Glencoe. I think the enthusiasm and the things that Bailey and his staff have brought in there, and the way their kids played, and their physical nature on the defensive front in particular, I think there's a lot of good things for them to build on, and I think Glencoe will win some ball games this year. It wouldn't surprise me if Glencoe's right there, knocking on the door for one of those playoff spots when the season ends. I think they've got that much potential.
That'd be a blessing, because they, like you said, they have a different mentality and everything. So
they do.
You can kind of tell it just been talking to them.
Yep.
Coach, before we shut these down, we always like to throw it back to the coach.
Yep.
Talk about anything program related.
Yeah, just I want to express my appreciation to our fans, our student body, our band, cheerleaders, everybody that had a part in the game the other night. The atmosphere was here, something unlike anything that I've experienced my first couple of years. Student section was standing up all night. They were loud. The administration, the faculty here at the school have been very supportive of our program. Our initiative here, we make no bones about it. We want to make football something at Westbrook that's more than just an activity. We want to make it a priority in the fall that, hey, we're going to put a good football team on the field, something everybody's going to be proud of, want to be a part of the Friday night experience. But I just thought there was a lot of people that invested a lot into making last Friday night go well and getting off to a good start. We want to carry that same energy and that same enthusiasm over on the road when we go to Saks. Westbrook, they travel unbelievably well here as far as going and supporting the team. We played a JV junior high game last night over at Glencoe, and we had a huge crowd. We had a bigger crowd last night at JV junior high game than some people will bring, to their varsity games. And so I just want to thank everybody for their support and their encouragement and getting behind the Warriors and wearing their school colors and making noise. And it definitely makes a difference. Kids feed off of that when they have that environment at home. And, we want to create that type of atmosphere each and every night we play.
Coach, I actually came by here and watched a quarter and a half myself and almost had to park at 12th Street Baptist Church over there.
Yep.
It's crazy. But, that's huge, man. I'm sure you guys got to enjoy a pretty good gate off that. And even Bailey said, he's like, man, that place was like a madhouse, so to speak.
It was. And like I said, one good thing about Westbrook, things kind of operate a little differently when you're at a private school and you're nonprofit and all,
Yeah.
I don't count every dollar and every cent. I leave that up to the people in the financial office to be able to balance the budget and all that. It's kind of a little bit different than what I was used to from a public school where you had to have some good crowds to be able to pay the bills.
That's right.
So very thankful there that we got people that are a lot smarter than I am that can handle the money side of it. But I do think they probably had to take some time to count the money on Friday night of last week because it was a big crowd.
No doubt. And, hey, you can't go to Alabama Power and say, hey, I got an IOU this week.
That's right.
You just have to depend on that.
Power bills still do.
They still do.
That's
Coach,
right.
Appreciate you sitting in with us so much. And God willing, we'll be back here each and every week with another episode. Thank you.
Thank you.